Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday to you out there. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co host, Trey Holiday. And as you know, I do this with my partner, Big O. What's up, Big O? Happy Monday, my friend.
Happy Monday to you, Trey, on a holiday. It's a pleasure to see you. It's the only time I see you these days is on the Morning Update Show. So it's always a pleasure to see you.
Absolutely, man. I'm missing you too much, man. I'll have to make sure I stop by the studio this week.
Yeah, please do. We'll be here on the grind. It's a very big week. Everybody knows tomorrow is the big election. We got election coverage actually tomorrow night from 7 to 10. We'll be live. But today's show, a lot of interesting stuff. I talked to Liz Brazil and to Ashley Hiruko of KUOW. They did a story on Officer Nielsen, who was on trial for murder down there, murder of Jesse Saray in Auburn, and their investigative reporting around the Auburn Police Department. Also, I talked to Paul Keifer, who's a writer for publicola.com, and his investigation to the Car Brigade and a lot of arrests that are happening around the Car Brigade. Then we're also going to catch up with Alaia Di Alessandro, and her three-part series that she did, which is called Music of the Chop. So we're going to get into all of that. Very excited about it. Before we do, though, we aired this video on Friday. Got a great response, so I think we'll play it one more time.
Now is one of the most important elections in our country's history. With a global pandemic, a withering economy, social change, and a lot of other crazy stuff. If you already voted, congratulations. If you haven't voted yet, get up, get out, go vote, and play your part in making not only our city, our county, our state, but our country a better place. Nobody likes an uninformed voter. Make sure and take your time to read through the issues on the ballot. I wonder if it's going to be Taco Tuesday on Election Day. Completely fill in the oval for each race using only black or blue ink pen. Vote all columns, both sides, and all pages of the ballot. Skipping a race will not invalidate your ballot. To prepare a ballot to send, place voted ballot in the secrecy envelope and seal the envelope. Sign the voter affirmation on the return signature envelope. No! Don't be like this guy. Make sure your vote counts by following all proper guidelines in preparing your ballot.
Yeah!
Yes.
Why didn't I see my brother's name on the ballot? On a serious note, and on behalf of all my colleagues here at Converge Media, get up, get out, go vote.
All right, get up, get out, go vote. And for people, I'm excited about this. It's not about voting. Let me put this on the screen here. There is my tracking. We're fortunate here in King County elections. I was able to track my ballot. Let me put it all the way up here. From ballot sent, ballot delivered, mailed back, ballot received, signature verification, and ballot counting. Big shout out to King County elections. They're holding it down. We're not experiencing a lot of the other things that some people across the country are experiencing. So I know you got your vote in, right?
I did, man. It felt great. Again, just that relief that to know that, I'm participating. And I think that this is really unprecedented. I think almost every presidential election, you hear a lot of the same terminology, but what we've experienced in the last 4 years has definitely been different in terms of the trajectory of the country. And a lot of people are ready to use that vote this year.
People are voting. And actually, we're gonna kind of kick off the show today with some national stories around the voter suppression. The first one is coming out of Houston, Texas. If you haven't been following it down there, the commissioner there, he got innovative as far as voting, especially due to COVID and everything else. They had drive-through voting. You could go there. It's the exact same machines and everything else, socially distanced. And there's a group, it's actually a Republican group, that's trying to get 127,000 votes thrown out. This was defeated twice on the state level, and now it's in federal court in Houston as we speak. They were just in court there about an hour ago. This is a report right here from KPRC in Houston, Texas.
Nearly 127,000 votes in Harris County are still in limbo just hours before Election Day.
The legal battle over ballots cast at drive-through voting locations will head to federal court this morning. Channel 2's Brittany Jeffers is at the drive-through location at Fallbrook Church in Northwest Harris County with more at what's at stake here. Brittany, good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you. Certainly a lot to discuss here. We know the Texas Supreme Court rejected the idea that polling locations like this violate the Constitution. But there is another big hurdle in all of this. As you mentioned, there is a similar lawsuit that's headed to federal court here in just a few hours. Controversy centered on 10 drive-through polling locations across Harris County. The purpose behind the lawsuit filed by Republican plaintiffs was to throw out nearly 127,000 votes already cast at these sites, arguing that the program violates the U.S. Constitution. The Texas Supreme Court denied the request, which came as no surprise to some associated with the Republican Party.
A lot of problems with drive-through voting. But lawsuits should not be filed halfway through early voting to try to stop it. They should have been filed much sooner.
The Woodfill law firm, which represents one of the plaintiffs, says Harris County Clerk Chris Hollins has failed voters. In a statement writing, Mr. Hollins' drive-through voting scheme is illegal, and due to problems with his system, he's failed to register thousands of votes. That statement went on to say this is what happens when one person unilaterally attempts to create a manner of voting not recognized under the law. But Hollins stands by the program, calling it perfectly legal.
They dismissed the case against drive-through voting for the second time, noting how absurd and baseless these claims are.
But again, this is not over. An emergency hearing is set this morning at 10:30 in federal court.
All right. Now, the state of Texas is notorious for voter suppression. I mean, if anybody ever wants to study, you study Prairie View, where Prairie View A&M, where the college is at. And they've been playing a game in Prairie View for years. You know, sometimes they'll put the voting station 30 miles from campus, knowing that students it's all over Texas. Now, Houston has had, incredible turnout. The whole state of Texas had incredible turnout. And you see that the clerk right there, the county clerk, I mean, he's standing by. He's already won 2 court cases with this. And even a representative there from the Republican Party was like, well, I mean, maybe the case has merits, but why are you bringing this case in the middle of the vote?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, shout out to Mr. Hollins for pressing on. I mean, once again, you mentioned it earlier. We don't really deal with a lot of this right here in King County. I mean, I have never had an issue voting. There's always been a ballot drop-off box. I've always gotten them in the mail. I've never had an issue. But for folks in other counties and other states, we're seeing it here play out in Texas, bro. I'm really happy that we have the system we have so that we don't have to face those kinds of obstacles. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Speaking of obstacles, let's take it to North Carolina. Also a state near and dear to me. I went to college down in North Carolina. My dad, lots of family lives there. This story is out of Graham, North Carolina. And there was a group marching. I don't even say they were protesters. There was a group that was marching over to the polling station, and they stopped in front of the courthouse there in Graham, North Carolina. It looks like tensions rose. The police, the sheriff there pulled out pepper spray. People there got pepper sprayed on their way to the poll. Apparently, it's being investigated. We'll see what happens here. But this is from Elon College, by the way, Elon News Network.
What did we do that would warrant the use of excessive force and the use of pepper spray or tear gas upon our multi-generational, multi-ethnic, upon our community that was in those streets just yesterday?
When we finish with our rally, we want to make sure that the community that haven't voted is going to vote.
Does the department have any regrets with the way things were handled yesterday?
There's disappointment. We were hoping to have a safe event. We wanted to have good coordination with the event coordinator.
Gotten the support of their counterpart. Attorney Benjamin Crump, along with our legal counsel, are forming a legal team. He has signed up to make Graham, North Carolina, a part of his focus to fight for the justice of all people.
What does democracy look like?
This is what democracy looks like.
Woo!
Yeah. Matter.
Black lives
matter.
Black women
matter.
Black kids
matter.
All right, right there in Graham, North Carolina, and is one thing. So in part of that press conference there, where the sheriff was speaking, when they brought up all these different issues that are over there, and one thing that he said was, well, no one got maced in the face, although video shows that some people did, but they said they sprayed the mace down. If you've ever been around, that isn't like the small bottle. That's like it's real deal. You believe me, been maced recently, and I mean it's real deal. You saw a woman there in her, basically in a roller and some everything else. Somebody might have been handicapped there, and I'm a multi-generational, small children in the crowd, and some everything else. There's the people, and it makes you really think about proportional use of force. I mean, it's crazy, but this is what people don't realize though, is that suppression. I reached out to Stephanie Johnson Tolliver from the Black Heritage Society, be like, okay, are there any instances of like voter suppression here? She emailed me back. We'll talk about it in tomorrow's show. But these are places across America that have a long history of suppression. I mean, this is back in the day where people would be out there with the shotgun out there at the voter box, or your employer would be there, and you knew it. Your employer would hang out over there, and if you voted, you might not have a job tomorrow, and everything else. I mean, this is suppression just goes in different facets now. You could imagine, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, then nobody had to take no case to no Supreme Court. The clerk wasn't no black guy over there in Harris County. You know what I'm saying? It was a lot of times it was brute force and intimidation. So now, go to the court, you'll do this and that. But it's there. And, it's important for people here in Seattle and King County to also see what's occurring in other parts of the country.
Absolutely. And I think that when, reaching out to SJT, as we love to call her, Stephanie Johnson Tolliver over at Black Heritage Society is a great way to go, because really what we're talking about here has deep historical context in this country. Again, we will get a great spotlight on what it has been, for Washington State or particularly King County. But when we talk about the nation, this is something that has been a part of the ecosystem of voter registration, of elections since the beginning. I have been doing a lot of my own research and finding clips of old guys that were head of the Republican Party, head of specific parties at specific times, that were saying, look, we don't want everybody to vote. It doesn't do our party justice when everybody votes and when every vote is counted. So looking at the history of this is a great perspective to go, because I think that there's a lot of layers to this though.
Right. And let's be clear, the Democratic Party has a long history of voter suppression in the South. It's also, you know what I'm saying? Let's be clear. You you go back a generation or two, there was the Democrats who was out there holding them shotguns at the ballot box trying to intimidate people from getting to the polls. So it's irregardless of an R or a D, it's where people's state of mind, and their consciousness to suppress the vote from occurring.
Period. Yep.
All right. So moving along, talk to Paul Keifer. This is my first time talking to Paul. He's the police accountability reporter for Publicola News, publicola.com. A lot of people know Erica Barnett over at Publicola. And so Paul did a 1-month investigative report around the car brigade. And the car brigade is the cars that surround the protesters, literally like a bubble. They surround the protesters when the protesters move through the city. And so apparently there's been a lot of arrests. Recently, there was a lot of arrests. There's quite a few sealed warrants that are out there. You can't get them unsealed. He was able to get his hands on one that fell into his hands accidentally. And I talked to him about the arrest and about what he thinks some of the strategies going on concerning the arrest. We have 2 clips here. This is where he breaks down kind of what's happening.
So in order to pull this together, it took about like a month of reporting, surprisingly. I wound up interviewing 5 members of what's called the Car Brigade. It formed in July in response to car attacks across the country. I think people probably heard about the frequency of car attacks on Black Lives Matter protesters in late May, June, and July. car brigade formed in response to that. It's people who provide a perimeter of a protective perimeter of cars around protests. I managed to get in touch with 5 of the drivers and with an attorney representing one of the drivers. I did a ride along. I got my hands on arrest reports and a pair of warrants and a warrant affidavit that shined a little bit of light into the arrests of car brigade members that have taken place between early August and the beginning of October. And what comes through from interviews with the car brigade drivers and then from the warrants and warrant affidavits is that on the SPD side, the SPD believes that the car brigade is not actually honest in its motivations. They say that the car brigade is not there to protect protesters. In fact, when car brigade is present at protests where something like property damage occurs, then car brigade is there to protect protesters from getting arrested and are therefore criminally liable for as accomplices to the property damage. But what the car brigade say is, 1, no, we are only there to protect protesters, and 2, these arrests, and there have been there have been over, I think, 17 people arrested, and there have been 13 cars seized, impounded, I should say. What the car brigade says is those arrests and seizures are intended to intimidate drivers out of volunteering for the car brigade, and therefore to strip marchers of their protective perimeter, and therefore to scare marchers into giving up, and so thereby ending the nightly marches that we've seen for over 150 days now. So that's the real gist of it.
All right, so that was Paul Keifer right there, and I talked to him because one of the things you read here is that in the warrants, there's 22 warrants at least, and they're sealed, but he got his hands on one of the warrants. And it says that the FBI and the ATF is working with the SPD and basically around this car brigade issue. And, I elaborated on him because, we had Sade Smith, and then we also had Prosecutor Satterberg last week. And both of them were talking about the feds in regards to the protests and everything else. Here is Paul when I talked to him about the FBI and the ATF and the car brigade. You were able to get a hold of an affidavit warrant. And in the warrant, it also listed some federal agencies in the warrant. Now, 2 things is, 1, how come you're only able to get one warrant? Are the warrants under seal, or you just weren't able to access them? And 2, what, if anything, does that say that like federal agencies like the FBI or the ATF are listed there in the warrant?
So to answer your first question, the reason why I could only get one is, they've been the SPD requested that they be sealed. They're specifically an SPD detective from the narcotics department requested that the warrant affidavits be sealed. So I managed to get one because I think it was sent in error to a driver and they sent it to me. But the reason why they said they sealed them was that, apparently if word of this investigation got out, it would threaten the investigation and threaten the security of law enforcement, is what is said. So, evidently I have my hands on something that I'm not supposed to have my hands on. But what it reveals is that I think we already knew that, the SPD has been working with federal law enforcement partners on things like that, attempted arson at the East Precinct, that they've tapped the FBI and the ATF to get involved in protest investigations. And the fact that the ATF and the FBI were mentioned in this warrant affidavit as people taking part in the investigations of criminal groups responsible for crimes during protests and the fact that, then SPD was linking the car brigade to those criminal groups means that there's, possibility, but unclear because all these warrant affidavits are sealed, that the FBI could in some way be involved in the investigations of the car brigade members, which would mean that, they would consider federal charges, but that would have to go to a federal grand jury. And, there's not enough evidence probably for this to even result in charges from the King County prosecutor, let alone a federal grand jury. But nevertheless, it signals that SPD's collaboration with the FBI has not ended and may be more extensive than we know.
Right.
Man, this is a tough one for me, because I think that there's a lot of people out there in the public that don't understand what's been happening to protesters on the other side, and trying to showcase so much of that story around, how protesters have been pushed and pulled in different ways. What Paul was just describing is another method that has been used to try to break down the spirit and the passion of so many folks who get out there in the streets. I think that what I have heard from my own discussions with protesters who have been freed and protesters who have been a part of this and really seen it play out is exactly what he described, where there is this this tactic to really break down the morale of the movement. Sade Smith also spoke to this in several of my interviews with her, where there is this tactic that authorities have to say, look, we need to make them weary. We need to make them tired. We need to make them afraid to come out of their homes. Let's do what we can to try to break down that spirit. And this just feels like another one of those tactics. So I'm thankful that Paul was able to highlight that as one of the reasons why they take this approach.
Right. And man, people when there was no car brigade or no barricade, you got to remember that somebody ran into a crowd here in Seattle and shot somebody. We watched that all play out. We watched lots of different stuff around cars. People can go, though. I would encourage people to go to publicola.com. It's also posted there on the SouthSeattleEmerald.com. They have a publishing agreement between those two entities, and you can read more about Paul Keifer's story right there. Moving along. So this was interesting. I got up early this morning and caught up with Liz Brazil and Ashley Haruko of KUOW. KUOW has been doing a lot. They've continuously done a lot of investigative reporting. They use their resources well to be able to dig into things. One of the things they looked at was a story down there in Auburn, Washington. And Converge, we get a lot of emails and messages from people in Auburn around the Jesse Saray incident there, the murder of Jesse Saray, but also just different things there in the city. But Liz and Ashley wrote a story there about Officer Nilsen. Officer Nilsen is now facing charges for murder, the murder of Jesse Saray. And actually in the use of I-940. This is the first officer to actually be charged under I-940. But they looked into his history there on the police force, and the murder of Jesse Saray, that was the third killing by this officer. But they also looked a lot deeper into the policing culture in the city of Auburn as well. All right, here this morning with Liz Brazil and Ashley Haruko, journalists with KUOW. See the headline right here. It says, "This Auburn cop killed 3 and injured others. His department didn't stop him. Outsiders did." Tell me about it.
Yeah, so Liz Brazil and I wanted to explore kind of, this officer at Auburn PD. He's killed 3 people. He's being charged now for his most recent killing in Washington State. And so we explored kind of his background, other instances of force that he's used. And what we found is that it wasn't just these 3 cases in which Jeffrey Nelson used, a disproportionate amount of force. It was like in his daily conduct as a canine officer. It also explored other issues within the department, just like we spoke to former detectives who said that there's sexual harassment happening there, that misogyny, negligent leadership. And this all kind of came to light in this report that came out when a consulting firm went there too. So that's basically our story in a nutshell.
And Nilsen, for people that don't know, Officer Nilsen is now on trial, right, for murder?
Yes.
The trial hasn't started yet, but he will be on trial, presumably within, sometime in the coming months. We were told that it could be up to a year, though, because, King County is experiencing a backlog right now of trials. So we'll have to report more on that later.
Right. And I guess I'll go to you first, Ashley. What were some of the real interesting things that just jumped out? I know you hit on them lightly, but what were some of the things in going through all of these reports and information that jumped out at you like, wow?
I mean, I guess in like instances of where he was accused of telling a juvenile when he was being detained, like, I hope you don't get raped, like things like that really jumped out to me.
Yeah.
That is a tough one. I mean, you hear stuff like that. Oh, and that's the kind of stuff when, a reporter is able to uncover that. We learn so much from that kind of interaction and that kind of language. And once again, me, I love seeing stories where it's like people power comes together to do something to affect real change. And that is what it looks like in this instance.
Right. And, I would encourage people to go over to kuow.org and check out this article. It's right there on the main page. Liz Brazil, Ashley Haruko. And this full interview, as well as the interview with Paul Keifer, will be up probably early this afternoon across all of our social platforms. Encourage people to go and check out the full interviews and read up. There's a lot of great reporting that's happening. And, one of the things we envisioned a while ago with Converge was like, with our show Writer's Block, but still trying to get that off the ground, but was to check in with different journalists who are writing a lot of these articles, usually for smaller publications, and kind of get the story behind the story. So really want to say thanks to Liz and to Ashley, as well as to Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that Converge is actually expanding too, and that we're getting content from so many different channels. I think it's so helpful to the audience, and it's helpful to me too. I'm learning so much. Thanks, though.
All right. So next one here, put this out of the follow-up folder. The mayor and the Seattle Parks Department actually announced that they were making space at, I think, 19 locations for 550 children to be able to have childcare when school started back up, and also a teen hub. And what that is basically childcare, meaning that, you can drop your child off there and go on to work. And while your child is there, your child is actually fed, and whatever, up there in Seattle Public Schools, they can do their online schooling there. They actually are able to get some exercise, some away from screen time, everything's COVID safe, everything else. So when it rolled out, I was like, oh, this is interesting, especially with a lot of people who watch our platform. But, you got to follow up on stuff. So I reached out and caught up with Seattle Parks Department and spoke with Lori Chisholm. Again, this full interview will be online, but here's my conversation with Lori about that program and how it's progressing. I thought this was a good opportunity to follow back up with the city and with the Parks Department and see what's going on, and maybe you can give us a little bit more information about this program.
Absolutely. We appreciate the opportunity. We recognize that these are really, really challenging times for the community and for families, and with learning being virtual with Seattle Public Schools and most other school districts, we know the extra lift that families have to do to help support their kids' learning as well as their social emotional health. And so we opened up our childcare programs that are focused on helping children that are elementary age, 5 to 12. And in those programs, we're really focused on trying to reach students that are furthest from educational justice, recognizing that these times are disproportionately affecting our communities of color. And we have space available. We're providing support for the virtual learning that kids are participating in. We have scholarships available. We can provide up to a 90% scholarship, which is about $169 a month per child. And we're operating 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. And we'll also work with any family because we don't want the program fee to be a barrier for them to access the childcare resources we have.
Right. And what would an average, I know there's different age groups, but what would the average day for a child consist of there?
Yeah, in the childcare programs, kids arrive typically around 8 a.m. and we will provide breakfast. And then we map out kids' online learning schedules, and work with the kids to make sure that they're logging in and engaging in their virtual learning opportunities. And when there's breaks in between, we're providing recreation opportunities, physical activity, some just opportunities to move and engage with their peers. But we're doing all that following all of the public health protocols and safety procedures to ensure that both staff and kids stay safe.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, if I'm a parent, I have to work, might not have the resources for traditional childcare, pretty expensive these days. You guys are offering a program where I could drop my child off and basically my child could go to school, do their school program, whatever it is, they're online. And then after work, I'll come and pick my child up.
Exactly. And we'll feed them breakfast, lunch, an afternoon meal, provide recreation, get kids moving because kids have a lot of screen time right now. That's really hard on kids too. And really provide some support for families that have to get up every day and go out into the workforce to keep their families going.
All right. So that's the Seattle Parks Department program right there.
It's a great program. Again, I think there's going to be so much more that we see in terms of, building resources and breaking down barriers for folks that are in need. We'll see a lot of that more rolling out in 2021. It's definitely needed. I mean, at this point, community is in need of a lot of different resources. I'm happy to see that, the city of Seattle has partnered with parks to provide this kind of resource for families. It's beautiful.
Right. And that full interview right there with Lori Chisholm will be up later on today. And she wanted me to make sure and mention, I know we'll put it in when it's posted, but if you know somebody who can benefit from this program, send her an email directly. And it's Lori, LORI.Chisholm, CHISHOLM @seattle.gov. There's still space in that program, and it's good to see that the Parks Department is doing what they said they were going to do. Like I said, when I saw that headline a while ago, I was like, well, let's see how this goes. And so it's good to follow up with the Parks Department, and they're doing their thing.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on here, the Seattle Police Department. It's a lot of times people think, and we get a lot of comments. People think that these CHOP murders are forgotten. When I talk to the Seattle Police Department, they assure me that they're working on this, and a lot of them are just the biggest homicides going on in Seattle in years. But they made another announcement, and they're looking for Marcel Long. This was the person that they've got a national arrest warrant out right now for the murder of Lorenzo Anderson Jr. This is off Q13. This aired actually the other night.
The police are asking for the public's help tonight to find the suspect charged in the fatal shooting of a 19-year-old man near the CHOP that sparked 2 high-dollar lawsuits against the city. Prosecutors have charged 19-year-old Marcel Long with murder in the first degree. He has a nationwide warrant for his arrest. Detectives say Long and Horace Lorenzo Anderson Jr. had been in a long-running dispute when they got into an argument on June 20th. Police say Anderson tried to walk away, but Long followed him, and another fight ensued, ending with Anderson on the ground.
This was premeditated. He wasn't going to allow that victim up. He carefully took the weapon, fired it once, relocated the weapon in another location, fired a second shot, causing the death of the victim.
When officers tried to respond to multiple 911 calls, an aggressive crowd barred their way and shouted that bystanders had already taken Anderson to the hospital. Anderson's father and mother have both filed separate lawsuits against the city for allegedly allowing an atmosphere of lawlessness that resulted in their son's death. And the fact that the accused killer is still on the run only adds to their pain.
All right, so the big picture of this is that the police are looking for Marcel Long, national arrest warrant, justice for Lorenzo Anderson's family. We've had Donita on here, Lorenzo's mom, quite a few times. And so, they're still pushing that. Also, I checked in with them around Antonio Mays Jr., the 16-year-old that was murdered in the CHOP, to see if there's any information there. No information, no update around suspects in the murder of Antonio Mays Jr.
I think that what you're alluding to here too is that so much of this work in terms of like moving investigations forward, a lot of the times that is the families asking for more information, trying to make sure that their loved one is not forgotten in the system. I think about some of my friends that have been murdered back in the days, still unsolved cases right here in Seattle, under the Seattle Police Department's jurisdiction. And I really do. I'm glad that we are uplifting these stories and we are keeping them at the forefront, because these families and these lives will not be forgotten, period. So I love that we are keeping it up. And I love that Q Fox 13 even, did a summary update on it, because again, it is something that needs to be hitting major media.
Yeah, and and talking to the Seattle Police Department, not a lot of media picked that up, and so I think that Channel 13 was one of the few stations. If I'm wrong, my apologies. But at the time that I spoke to SPD, they said that only one station, Channel 13, had made mention of it. Although in that report, I won't go too deep into it. I don't know who wrote it. I was right there when the police were trying to enter the CHOP. Lorenzo Anderson had already been evacuated, and anyways, there's not enough time here on the show today. But yeah, didn't quite go down like that. But the other thing that's in there, though, is again, in these lawsuits that a judge said could go forward, the lawsuits are claiming that, the Seattle Police Department, fire, and other agencies knowingly created this no-go zone. And so they knowingly created the CHOP. And that's what that's going to be the big part of liability in a lawsuit here. In the Seattle Police Department and fire put out a map saying where they would not go, and that's going to be a big part in uncovering litigation. But the bigger picture is national arrest warrant still out there for Marcel Long. We want justice for Lorenzo Anderson Jr., Antonio Mays Jr., and all these other homicides occurring in Seattle. Moving along real quick, we're a few minutes behind. I gotta play some of this stuff. This was from T'Challaween. Yeah, you see me dancing, Trey?
I see you, man. I love it. Look at all the families out there. It looks like you were Luke Cage, man, holding it down.
Man, Luke Cage in the building. That's Carlos Imani right there. Had the photo booth going. Big producer Nikki Barron. That's Marcus Harrison Green right there. You can't tell who he is. Jesse McKinnon. And so it was in COVID. They threw the candy and everything else. Little Tina Turner right there. Great time for families. Big shout out to the South Seattle Emerald and to Rainier Avenue Radio for putting everything together. Fantastic time up there on Beacon Hill.
Man, well, who was that with the big old DJ turntable? Was that Tony B?
That was Tony B. He was DJ. He was DJ Funkadelic. I said, man, you all funked up, bro.
You so ready. I love it. I love the spirit of that. It's beautiful, man. What a great weekend. I also say too, I was so into it. I was actually shopping at all the booths at Liberation Hollows Eve that I did not get any footage, but I had an amazing time. Another great event this weekend. And also RBLA stopped by there. They had the great folks out there fixing people's bikes and giving out bikes. Just a beautiful weekend all around. And I loved being able to see these culturally responsive approaches to Halloween.
Fantastic. Before we go to break, all right, we have election night coverage. Are you going to tune in, Trey?
I'm tuning in, man. I got to hear what all my folks are talking about. It's going to be something that we deal with, I think, for several weeks, as we know that all of the votes and all of the decisions won't be counted tomorrow. But clearly, I know you guys are going to have a live discussion, so I can't wait.
Yep. So we got Julia Jesse, Mike Davis, and Marcus Harrison Green, and myself will be live from 7 p.m. tomorrow. Election coverage right here on Converge. We're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, we have director Alaia D. Alessandro talking about the music of the CHOP. You are watching the Morning Update Show.
My parents coming over here as refugees meant that they didn't really have anything when they came to America. Having reliable healthcare and having a reliable doctor was really important. Cộng đồng của tôi, trạm y tế của tôi.
我的社区，我的诊所。Mi comunidad, mi clínica.
بلشدة هي بقارها.
My community, my clinic.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right. Welcome back to the Morning Update Show. My name is Omari Salisbury.
I am Trey Holiday. Hey, y'all.
Hey. So just a reminder here, we have our custom tees. And I think I just saw a short clip of that right there. You can go to where we converge /shop custom. And we partner with Sierra Sisters. So a portion of all the shirts go over to Sierra Sisters. I know it's in November now, but, let's make a statement. I know people love the Converge merch. We didn't print up a lot of it, so it's definitely a limited edition, and we really encourage people for a good cause. And, and the Converge stuff, it's like collectors. You know what I'm saying? We find a lot of people that are like, yo, I got this one and that color and everything else. So this is definitely one to pick up for a good cause.
Absolutely.
All right. So now, this is the part of the show I've been waiting for. We have director Alaia. People used to say, oh yeah, play this, oh yeah, play that. Where's my buddy at? Where is Alaia? There she is.
Oh yeah. Hey Trey. Hey it's nice to see you too.
Hey,
Nice
what's
to
up?
Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm saying it's like, man, you're a sight for sore eyes. How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing well as you can be. I'm really happy to be here and happy to see you both.
All right, good stuff. I know that we'll see you back here on set here in a bit. I think in the next few weeks, the whole family will be reunited. But this break, I guess, has been good for everybody because it's given an opportunity for you to expand on that creative side. I know like the director stuff is cool because you direct the show, but man, you are a creative powerhouse, like a juggernaut.
Thank you so much. I have a lot of fun making these segments and connecting with people. They're very meaningful experiences, and it's great to be able to, change things up and have multiple experiences using the video world.
All right. So we're going to play this trailer right here of Chop Artists. Then when we come back, you can tell us about it and tell the viewers what they can expect from your 3-part series. Okay?
Perfect.
When it came to playing music in the Chop, there was no other feeling. Nothing else in this world can replicate it because you're out there with a bunch of other people that are fighting for the same cause and the same vision of the world.
The first time I stepped foot in Chop was the first time I had ever been outside and not felt that immediate anxiety of being swallowed by the prison or police industrial complex.
The ways I think that Chop and Chaz has changed art and artistry in the community is I think that it brought a lot more attention to those who probably were looked past beforehand.
I love that song.
Oh, yeah, tell us about it.
Oh yeah, so I had the opportunity to go and catch up with the artists in the Chop, and you know these artists well. That was Martial Law Band that we just heard in the background there, and we also talked with King Youngblood and Maya Marie, and we kind of talked with each of these artists about kind of like what art kind of changed in the dynamics of Chop, and what it brought to what having art in the Chop brought and changed, and how the Chop also kind of changed these artists. We got to know a little bit about each of their experiences of being in the Chop and doing art there, and then how they carried that those experiences forward into their art, and kind of what they have coming up next between albums and music videos and performances.
So cool. I'll say this too. Personally, I love that you were able to connect with these bands and with these artists. I have my own affinity for King Youngblood. You know, did a show with him and his whole band. They rock out so hardcore. So I just got elated when I saw him on the screen. I was like, yes, you were connecting with all of them, and I just love that you did that. I wanted to ask you personally. You know, I know you are a music lover yourself. You are out there with your band. How was this for you? You know, being on both sides kind of this storytelling, because you're a musician yourself, and so you're experiencing what COVID is bringing to that musician world.
Yeah, because I knew Cameron from King Youngblood. We played a performance for Seattle World Tour together last year. And you know, he's so friendly and so community based, and I think it was great to interview him and kind of see that side of him come out in the interview and talk about how like that community aspect related to the CHOP and like coming together with people of like-minded ideas and having that freedom of expression has been influencing his art. And it was cool to see, like, as a friend, that development, but also just like really interesting as both a producer and also somebody who lived like on 12th and Pine as well, to be able to kind of dive into that story a little bit, both with him and with martial law, talking about the battle for the hill and kind of how creating art within that moment affected them and changed the way that entire band makes art, and getting the story behind that and their experiences, a firsthand experience of it. Because I told them, I was like, man, I remember like one of the reasons why I joined Converge was because there was that moment where like I heard outside of my apartment, I heard all these explosions going off and there was like smoke, and I didn't know what was going on. And of course, Omari was always there, you know, covering it all. And that was such a privilege to be able to know what was going outside in my community. And then their martial law band were just like playing through it. And it kind of like, it was a very particular moment that I remember watching the video of him coming down, Omari coming back from away from like the tanks and the smoke and the rubber bullets, and then turning around, and then you hear that song that was in the back of that promo video, the Black Lives Matter. And it was like, man, I just think it's so incredible. They made those songs up on the spot. And it is very interesting to hear, you know, from both them and King Youngblood and Maya Marie, what creating art in a that kind of context and those kinds of moments does for an artist, and how they all take those moments with them throughout their art.
Man,
beautiful.
Man, let me go with something over here before we talk about the programming, because I think this is a relevant comment. Lloyd Gregory says, "Dang, Converge has a deep bench, so much talent on tap, and all of it connected to the city." And I would just say that I'm just thankful that all these amazing people. Oh, that's okay. Buster can join us. That's all these amazing people just came all at, you know. We're just thankful to have you, Alaia. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Real thankful to have you on the team. Let's talk about the programming here. So tomorrow, and we're making time here in the morning show. You know, this is important to you and to us, and I think to the community. So we're gonna air these segments here in the morning show. So tomorrow is Martial Law Band, right?
Correct.
And then Wednesday is Maya, and Thursday is King Youngblood.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
And then after these segments air here in the morning update show, they'll go across all of our social platforms after that. Before we let you go, tell us, like, so you've got these, you've been doing some, we saw your work with Shayna Shepherd, the segment you did on Shayna Shepherd, I think a week or two ago. And you've been making these excellent segments here that are uplifting voices in our community and uplifting voices in the music community as well. What's next on the radar for you?
Well, we're definitely going to talk to Smash, which is like a I'm forgetting, it's an acronym, but I can't remember the full acronym right now, but that it's essentially a network that provides healthcare for musicians, which it's really easy to do. So I'm going to work with them on showing people how you can sign up for us if you're a musician. It's free, and they basically, like, if you can get like primary care, and you can go to the dentist, which is like very, very necessary in a time like this. So that'll be the next immediate thing on our list. I know Bobby's also working on some stuff. We got to go and talk with Big Building at Belltown Yacht Club, and that's going to be a segment that he's producing that we both worked on together. So, and there's more after that too.
All right, fantastic. We're looking for it tomorrow. Tomorrow, Martial Law Band will be airing that. And thank you so much, Alaia, and thank you for your commitment to uplift voices in our community, using your amazing skills. It's so appreciated, and we're looking forward to viewing all these episodes.
Thanks for giving us a platform to do so.
All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, the Morning Update show continues.
When it came to playing music in the
Nikki went hard on the guitar and bass. That's Big Building. So actually, there's a lead into it right here. Is on Thursday. Really excited. This partnership with Big Building. We're gonna have Goodie Bag and Cool Nuts. And so, we used to stream. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, Converge was ahead of its time when it comes to this streaming, right? Because you remember, as soon as the governor shut everything down, we'd go and we'd have Goodie Bag over there at Black Dot every Sunday at 7:00, and Goodie Bag would give a free concert to the community. This is back in March, a free concert to the community. We didn't have much equipment. Daryl at the time, Daryl had some camcorders, so we had some camcorders set up, and we was live streaming Goodie Bag, to the neighborhood. And now partnered up with Big Building, and Big Building has this amazing platform and venue and everything else. So we're elevating the guys to that platform. It's May. I wish it was May. November 5th. So Nikki has put the information there in the stream. And we also got Cool Nuts, one of my favorite rappers, is coming up from Portland. So it's going to be great. We're going to be streaming it right here across the Converge platform, and I'll be hosting.
Oh, that's so dope. I think that, it is important that we find different avenues to uplift art. And I love that Converge is partnering with Big Building on this. I've been loving Big Building series with their kind of concerts that they've been having. So it's really great that there's going to be this kind of connection of, creativity and community. Great job, Bo.
You know what I'm saying, man? We got to use what we can. We got to do what we can with what we have,
Absolutely.
Is great because from our side, from Converge side, we haven't waited, and it's really good that months ago everything that we had was inferior. I told people, I said we probably got the worst equipment, but we got the best work ethic, and that hustle out there, that continuous hustle and grind is built all these partnerships and everything else. So we're really excited about it. Once again, let me throw this up here before we get out of here. Remind everybody that tomorrow night, 7 p.m., election night coverage. We like to say culturally relevant election night coverage. We're going to have some fun. I've reached out to a bunch of other people as well to see how we can pop in on them and pop in on, some of these campaigns and everything else to get some perspective. Election night coverage, 7 p.m. right here. Make sure that you tell a friend all about it. We might even pop in live on you, Trey.
Hey, I was about to say, you might have to pull me as one of the guests. Oh, it's going to be hot and heated come Tuesday night, my friend. I'm ready. You let me know. I'll be ready.
Right. And in King County, most of the things that are real relevant right here to us, especially city of Seattle, King County, a lot of stuff we should really know. You know what I'm saying? I think they're talking about like national, presidential, things like that. But King County elections is very efficient. And, you know, I mean, for Seattle, you know, there's no council members on the ballot this year. The mayor's not on the ballot this year. But there is some of the things was 90, which was sex education. That was on the ballot. The King County, the charter amendments, especially dealing with the sheriff and what the sheriff's going to do, that's on the ballot. It was quite a few things about money that was on there, the legislature and them trying to allocate funds and if those funds should stay or not. That's on there. And of course, state legislature is important to me. My brother's running for District 37, and then congressional. So, but a lot of the stuff, especially in King County, like, man, we should have a grasp on that.
Yeah, we should be straight. And you know, I'm in federal way, and I'm so elated because what we're really seeing, I see it progressively every election, whether it is, you know, 4 years or 2 years, all the interim elections, is that we're seeing more and more people of color running for these offices, running for these positions. And ultimately, I'm just thrilled and elated by that. When I think about the options that certain cities really had, I mean, here I had the option of choosing Jamila and Jesse. I mean, come on. For me, it gives me a little bit more hope in the political system, though, that's for sure.
All right. Oh, before we get out of here for today, want to remind everybody, I'm so excited. Like, I do a lot of stuff, and I don't want anybody to think I'm not excited about other things that I participate in. But this is such a big deal, and it's very personal to me. Teamed up with Seattle Association of Black Journalists. This is November 14th. Black Voices Matter Behind the Lines with me. And Joyce Taylor is coming here to Converge Studios, and you know, I'll be honest with you, Trayana. We've already started cleaning and everything, washing walls. I'm like, man, Joyce Taylor's coming. Joyce Taylor's coming. You know, like a little kid over here. Like, it's gonna be a big deal. It's like Joyce Taylor's gonna be up in our studio, man. So really super excited about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know what's going to be going on. All I know is come November 14th, I'm going to be right there at that studio. I got to make sure I see Joyce as part of the Converge team. Again, I think that this is such a great honor for you, and a true testament to the work that you've been doing. Converge has been on the ground for years. And maybe just now folks are realizing how, dedicated you are to telling these stories, but you've been doing this for a long time. So kudos to you, my friend. It's definitely deserved.
Right. I appreciate it, Trina. People you can go right now. Tickets only $10, $5 for students. Just go to eventbrite.com and put in Omari Salisbury, and you'll be able to see it and get a ticket. Get a few tickets, support the cause. This money goes to Scholarship Fund to uplift the voices of up and coming journalists here in the Seattle area. All right, Trey, we're going to get out of here for today. Anything for you?
Nothing for me, man. Make it a great Monday. It's the start of an amazing week, and we know we're going to see a lot of stuff happening this week. So just be easy, y'all. Be easy and make it a great week.
I agree with that. We're going to get out of here. If you have not voted, get up, get out, go vote. Come on, man. You know what I'm saying? This is serious business. You got so many reasons to vote. You know what I'm saying? There's absolutely no reason not to vote. If you need help voting, man, I take this personal. Email me, Omari, OMARI, at whereweconverge.com. I'll get you in the hands of somebody who can assist you right away. We want to get those votes in the ballot box. Till tomorrow at 11 a.m. Peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full way that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun.